Hey, you Dragon Slayers. Today's video is about Huntington's disease, migraines, neuropathy, and their connection to insulin resistance. There is very little substantive evidence suggesting a causal relationship between insulin resistance and Huntington's disease. Nonetheless, Dr. Beekman considers the disease worth mentioning. Because people with Huntington's disease are much more likely to be insulin resistant than non Huntington's patients, despite having similar characteristics like similar age, body composition, etc. In fact, in a well controlled study, people with Huntington's disease were almost 10 times more likely to have symptoms of insulin resistance compared to healthy individuals. Huntington's disease is a very clear genetic disease based on a person's inheriting the Huntingtin gene, which over time leads to devastating damage to muscle and mind. Studies of Huntington's disease involve particular rodents that develop the disease by having their DNA tweaked to include the human Huntingtin gene. Interestingly, these mice, along with developing Huntington's disease, become insulin resistant within weeks. So, among the most common neurological disorders are migraine headaches that affect roughly 18% of the US adults. A study of middle aged women found that those who had insulin resistance were twice as likely to have regular migraines. A separate study of men and women found that insulin levels were significantly higher in people who experience migraines compared with people who don't. Looking at this another way, when treated with an insulin sensitizing medication, over half of a group of 32 people with regular migraines experienced a significant reduction in migraine frequency. Like Alzheimer's disease, part of the problem with migraines could be a running on empty scenario where the brain isn't getting enough fuel when insulin isn't working and glucose can't get to the brain. Now that we've established the relevance of insulin resistance and healthy brain function, it's important to remember that the brain is sort of a bundle of nerves, and these nerves communicate with nerves spread throughout the entire body. Just like the nerves that accompanies diabetes, the burning, just like the nerves in the brain, those outside of the brain are affected by insulin resistance. The nerve damage that accompanies diabetes, the burning, tingling sensation in the limbs, particularly the feet, is so commonly associated with type 2 diabetes that it is considered a staple of the disease. This diabetes induced neuropathy has long been seen as a consequence of the hyperglycemia that clinically defines type 2 diabetes. However, recent findings are challenging this notion. While hyperglycemia is undoubtedly relevant to neuropathy, the problem appears to start before the blood glucose changes, suggesting something other than glucose is to blame. Of course, that something is insulin resistance. Nerves, like every other cell in the body, respond to insulin, which determines how the nerve takes in and uses energy. As the nerve becomes insulin resistant, its ability to maintain normal function is compromised, eventually causing neuropathy. We now know that insulin is relevant to the most brain related functions of chronic disease. Because the brain needs a lot of energy to function, it needs a reliable fuel. When the brain becomes insulin resistant, access to this fuel becomes limited. And that's relevant even before the disease sets in. We've only just begun to understand all of the roles that insulin plays in the brain and central nervous system. It influences appetite, helps memory, regulates dopamine, and so much more. The bottom line is a healthy brain requires healthy insulin sensitivity. Brain and other nervous disorders are sobering health concerns. Losing control of your body is a terrifying scenario. However, by acknowledging the role that insulin resistance plays in these conditions, we introduce a new perspective, not only on identifying the disorders, but possibly for slowing their progress or even preventing them in the first place. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. And remember, guys, that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.